welcome to my channel. I am Zodiac Bandit, and today we're going to be recapping episode 92 of Campaign 3 of Critical Role. So, not much else to say other than let's get into it. We start on the surface of Ruidus, the party fleeing the tunnels with what remains of FCG. Liliana meets them on the surface. The party look around on the surface, not knowing exactly what to do next. Orm looks out for danger with a perception check of 28. He sees the dust storms are miles off, and there doesn't seem to be any enemies nearby at the moment. The party has emerged on the outside of the mountain range that surrounds the city of Kavira, so they are no longer inside it. The party see the bloody bridge off in the distance, so they know which direction to go. Imogen thinks they should find a crack in the ground to hide in, but any of them that are close by are really far off. Ashton dips down to look around for a safe place right beneath them. Liliana is locked on Imogen, tears on her face. She says she doesn't know what's going on, and Imogen takes her hand. She says that she doesn't know what's going on either. Liliana says they can't stay here and they need to go. Imogen asks if she is staying, she being her mother. Liliana says if she leaves, they'll know, and she can be more useful here. Orm wants to know what she knows. She has very important information. Imogen asks what Liliana meant about being a vessel. Liliana says in order to reawaken and get to the God Eater, they must pass through boundaries set up by the gods. She doesn't know the specifics about them. What she does know is that the Ruidusborn are part of pushing through the final boundary. There is something in the Ruidusborn that the gods can't stop, and in order for him to come back across, it needs to have a vessel to carry it. Imogen says that means Liliana cannot stay. Liliana says that there are others who can be used as a vessel, and she can be more help here. Orm says she'd better go with them to get her information instead of being used as the vessel. And if she's not the vessel, what will she do against a God Eater? Liliana asks what about the God Eater they fear so much. Orm says it's the unforeseen consequences of it being released. Liliana says that she's communed with him and she doesn't believe he wants them. Orm says he just can't take her word for it. Fern asks what exactly Predathos wants. Liliana thinks he wants to be awakened and free. Lana questions if it's actually better for Predathos to not care about them at all. Liliana says it's hard to explain, but something feels right about the path that it wants. Liliana wishes she could show them, but they don't have much time. Chenny asks if he wants something other than just eating gods. Liliana says that he's been here a while, and it's very hungry and angry and wants to eat what it naturally eats. Meanwhile, Ashton below is looking for a place underground that is safe for them, but with a perception check of 9, he finds nothing, and comes back up. The party say that they're going to get going, but stop themselves before they reveal that there's a second way home. And instead they say they have to go to the Bloody Bridge, for it is the only way home. Orm asks what Liliana is going to do, and Liliana asks how she's more useful to Imogen on Exandria rather than here. Here she can update them on what's going on and what changes. Imogen hugs her and asks what if they pull her away again. Liliana says that Imogen will know what to do next time. Imogen asks how they can talk. Liliana thinks that it'll be safe for them to communicate if she isn't on Ruidus. Imogen tells her mother to stay. Liliana is both heartbroken and relieved. Part of her wanted to go with Imogen, but the other part of her wanted to stay. Chenny asks if the Weavemind will be able to tell that Liliana is no longer on their side. Liliana says the Weavemind have actually never trusted her. Ludinus and the Weavemind have a unique relationship. He made first contact with them 3 centuries ago, and they put him on this path. They both use each other, and the Weavemind does not trust any of the Exultant. Lana asks what Odahan was for the Weavemind. Liliana says a possible vessel, but that possible vessel is no longer on the table. Imogen asks how many vessels there are, and Liliana says there's 4, and they are trying to awaken more powers for the others. Ludinus normally does it, but he is not here on Ruidus currently. Imogen asks where he is, and she says he's on Exandria. Insight check from Imogen, 23. She seems to be truthful. Ivaroa says that she thinks she knows where Ludinus is. She says she's been working under him and working on devices from Exandria. The Assembly defectors have been having issues with where the devices come from. Something has taken root there. Orm says Liliana knows Ludinus is a son of a bitch and has done horrible things, but how can she go along with it? She must know whatever happens next must be bad. Liliana says that he's only following the path that Predathos laid out for him. Ludinus is just a part of Predathos' plan. They wouldn't understand without seeing it or feeling what she has felt. Ashton says it's not hard to understand. He knows self-delusion when he sees it. She is in deep and thinks that she will be fine. Her greatest fear is his greatest fear, and they just got a sample of that. Will she hear when Ludinus kills her daughter on Exandria? Liliana says, do you think stopping Predathos from being released will stop the Rudisborn from being hunted by the temples on Exandria? They know the truth, and the truth will want to be snuffed out. Orm says that's a cold comfort for his family in the ground. Liliana is sorry for that. In Orm's head, Imogen says to not push her mother away, they just got her back on their side. Fern asks why she became a follower of all of this, and Liliana says that when she started getting visions, she went to the Starlight Conservatory in Jushar. She feared she'd bring something terrible on her family. Ludinus came to her and became a mentor of sorts, and told her that there was a way to be freed of this. Before she realized what was happening, she was in too deep. Fern says it's never too late to get out. Lana says that with every minute their chances of escape diminishes. Can they trust Liliana when they come back across the bridge? Liliana says nothing is more important to her than Imogen. Imogen questions that. She thinks there is something more important here that Liliana is not telling her about. Imogen says to not put where Liliana goes on her. Imogen just asks for her mother to please help her. Liliana promises to help them when the time comes. Imogen asks how they can escape the city. Liliana asks for their hands. The party gives her their hands, and suddenly they are teleported to the bloody bridge. No one seems to notice them, and as they look around, everyone is super slow. Liliana says to find the ones they trust and be quick. She can't hold this very long. The party leap into the bloody bridge, and as Imogen steps through, in her head she hears her mother say sorry. The party emerge at the base of the Malleus Quay. They are now back on Exandria. They see a bunch of Ruidian soldiers all around, and there's a larger encampment surrounding the Malleus Quay. The party are wearing Vanguard clothing. They question if they should stealth out or try to blend in. They choose to try deception. Fern makes herself look like a Rylauren. Imogen tries to make herself look like Liliana. Deception checks. Chetney with a 23, Laudna with an 18, Fern with an 11, Imogen with a natural 1, Orm and Ashton both had 4. They make their way down into the encampment surrounding the Malleus Quay. They see beasts from Ruidus are being brought down here. They can also see what seems to have been intense fighting all around the area. There's a bunch of battle scars everywhere. Orm sees 2 mystics floating by that seem to notice the party and begin to follow them. They're flying over the soldiers in the encampment, and the soldiers' heads are beginning to pop up as they fly over top, seemingly being warned by the mystics. The party just keep on moving. The soldiers follow the mystics, and a makeshift battalion is now following the party. Laudna tells Imogen to turn around and dismiss them when she tells her to. Imogen turns around, and Laudna twin spells Phantasmal Force on both the mystics so that they see Liliana. One fails and one saves. Imogen says there is no need for an escort and that they are dismissed. Luckily, the mystics turn and leave, and the soldiers do as well. The party continues up the wall of the dig site toward the top. They pass a couple of warders as they go up, but no one seems to notice them. Imogen and Orm look for Plane Rider Rin as they are leaving. Her and Orm roll perception checks, and Orm rolls a 30, so I don't need to tell you what Imogen rolls, and they are 100% sure that Rin is no longer near the Malleus Quay. She has seemingly been moved. They get to the edge of the dig site, and they see the bloody bridge going up to Ruidus. The air here is very welcome compared to what they've been through recently. They move past the station weapons that are defensively placed around everywhere. They don't know how these work. Orm knows which way to get back to their allies' encampment. They also see a unique graveyard of siege weapons as they leave. There are craters on the ground, battle scars all over the earth. They also see pikes with trophies on them with a bunch of different holy groups on it. The party look for anything of the Changebringer. They do, and they find a cloak with the Changebringer symbol on it. Imogen casts Sending to Keyleth. We're back at the surface of the Malleus Quay, trying to find a way back to you. Keyleth responds almost instantly. That's wonderful news. I'll be at the encampment as soon as I can. Can you make it back there? Safe? Wait, that's not how this works, and that's where the sending ends. Seemingly even high-level druids don't know how sending works. It's not a two-way communication. They start stealthing their way past the roaming guards of the dig site, or the exterior guards of the dig site. Fern casts Pass Without a Trace on them. Stealth checks 11 from Chetney, 29 from Laudna, Fern with a 16, Imogen with a 28, Orm with an 18, and Ashton with a 24. As they're going, Ashton and Fern both lose their elemental forms and both take 2 points of exhaustion. The party make it past the perimeter of the guards without any issue. As they walk through the Hellcatch Valley, they begin to process what they have lost. Imogen looks at the moon and says that it was truly awful. Lana says that he didn't have to do that. Ashton says he's been itching to do that since the day they met. Orm says if FCG didn't do that, they could all be dead right now. Lana thinks they could have had Odahan no matter what. Imogen thinks that she was too strong for them. Chenny says that FCG made a count, so they got to make a count for them. Imogen hopes they made the right call with her mother. She thinks she would have come, but she didn't trust her enough. Lana thinks that this is her chance to prove herself. Imogen says that she's felt the welcoming feeling from Predathos and is worried about how long her mother has felt it. Orm thinks Liliana is a believer in Predathos, not Ludinus, so maybe there's hope there. Imogen thinks Predathos is a part of them. He made them after all. This makes Laudna think of FCG. The things she struggles with, they all do feel like they have been designed to do something. They have been able to do more than what their creators have intended, unlike Liliana. Ashton says Liliana makes him angry. Imogen is too good for her. Ashton hopes her ends are good because the means are unforgivable. Orm asks about Odahan's weapons. Chenny takes out her weapons, and Orm picks up her sword and puts it on the ground, and says that this sword is the sword that killed his father and husband. She is not right, and he walks away. Laudna says that she loves Imogen, and Imogen says it back, and then she says they love everybody, and they should say it more often. Chetney says FCG was unique, as if everything they saw was new to them. Laudna says Liliana gave them some good info. Ludinus is on Exandria dealing with where the devices come from, and the party look at Ivaroa, who is taking everything in. They welcome her to the Blue Promise, which isn't currently blue. She sees Ruidus and says that it's much smaller from here. Chet says that they'll get her somewhere safe and for her to keep a low profile for now. Ivaroa says thanks for saving her and that she will do what she can to help. Lana thinks the devices Ludinus are dealing with are similar to the ones that they found in the crate back on Ruidus. They ask Ivaroa if she knows the name of the place that these devices come from. She says Aor. The party asks about the devices. She says that they were brought to them and they were able to add their tech to it. She says at first they were trying to create something to dig through the glass pillar, and they were able to dig through the first couple of layers, but the layers after that seemed to be more divine. This is when Ludinus went back to Aor, where there was supposed to be a consistent supply of these devices, but there has been an issue with a Dominox, a creature of sorts. Ivaroa doesn't know what a Dominox is exactly. Ivaroa and her group were trying to find out a way to dig through the divine glass, and the glass pillar are the remnants of the last form of Predathos. They take out the glass globe that they got on Ruidus. Ivaroa says with the Exalted and the Weave Mind they were able to feel out what the veins were, and that they believe that the glass is what his last form was and is now his prison. Lana asks what she knows about the vessels. Ivaroa doesn't know anything about that. They kept her team at an arm's length. She did what she could to try to find info out for the Volition. The party think about what they know about Aor. They know it was an ancient society and that's where FCG came from. At this moment, they all remember that they have to tell Frida about FCG. Ashton says one problem at a time. Chenny picks up Odahan's sword and looks at it for a minute. It's a very long curved blade with a small hilt. It's very light and there seems to be a faint vibration to it. Imogen thinks that they can absorb it, but Ashton says that it's not their sword to deal with, it's Orm's. Ashton, in pain, lays down. Ivaroa then helps him up. Lana asks if he's alright, and Ashton says, will any of them ever be? He says at this point, he is at a point in life where he has to pick who he needs to be next. He says he needs to sleep on it. He hopes Ivaroa does great work, because she was very expensive. Imogen goes to Orm. She puts her hand on his shoulder. He says he's sorry, he knows how hard this is for her, and she says it must be hard for him right now too. He says it wasn't about revenge for him, he was just trying to honor them. Imogen says that she didn't know them, but they must be proud of how far he's gone. He's gone farther than anyone expected him to, and he's still going. Orm says simply, so far. He's going to miss them, and he'll miss FCG. Imogen says that they were alive. Orm says more than any of them, they just wanted to help. Imogen says for a while Orm might have felt that the two of them weren't seeing eye to eye and that they didn't have the same goals, but he doesn't have to worry about that anymore. Orm understands doing anything for family. He wants her to have her family. Imogen wants that as well, but choices were made. And if nothing else, they now have inside knowledge. Orm says as much as they'd like to turn back the clock, they can't. The party start walking. Orm stays back a bit and pulls out the sending stone. He sends a message to Dorian. We're home. Can you hear me? Northeast of Vassarus. Can you get there? I'm struggling. Can you get there? I'll come see you. As the spell is sent, Matt asks everyone to leave the table. Then Matt leaves the table. Then Abria goes to Matt's seat. She says it's time for us to see the other half of the story. The Crown Keepers are back. After Kymel, the party went north to hide from Pashka. How far will Fuhrer-Eye's sister go to find them? They've been on the move for a month now. They harvested the brimstone from the floating platform they had after leaving the city. They are very close to Craghammer, but they feel like a big city isn't safe. But 2 weeks ago, the solstice started and Ruidus became locked over Marquette. Old enchantments died, sending and teleportation does not work. The Crown Keeper's connection to the gods have been cut off. Dorian hears a message from Orm telling him to go to Keyleth. They start traveling to Zephyra. This time was dark for the party, as they are hiding as they go. The glitz and glamour of Kymel are behind them, and Opal is looking very dark. Abria asks what the others in the party are up to, or how they feel about everything. Dariax wants to stay with the party and protect Opal and follow Dorian. Morrigan feels lost after leaving Kymel. She thought that she'd find her place after she did, but she didn't quite yet. She feels distant from the party as they all had a bond before they met, but she continues to travel with them. But once her new patron tells her to bite, she will, no matter who it is. Her new patron is the Matron of Ravens, by the way, in case anyone was curious. Fuhrer-Eye is confused by the recent events. She does her best to pull her protective nature back on the party and is feeling the loss of a family member. Dorian is glad to be with his friends, but as the group drifts a bit, he feels like he's missing something he thought would lead him to the right answer. It's something he ran from, something he wanted to forget. As he looks around at the group, he is wondering why he is still here. Opal is in a dreamlike existence. She pretends to be herself around the party. She feels so she can feel in control, but as they go to bed, she has a far-off look and begins to speak to herself, muttering, but doesn't want it to alarm anyone quite yet. Every night, Opal goes to sleep and wakes up exhausted, as if she's been moving around or fighting something. Whatever happens during her sleep is a void. Every dawn, when she reaches for Ted, she's exhausted as well, and she doesn't want to worry Opal. There seems to be a fight inside herself. The party is traveling. There are long days and Opal is exhausted. 2 days into travel, Opal feels something inside of her break. She's too tired. Opal's mind is Opal's, and Ted's, and hers. It's all become too much. As they travel, Opal stops, her eyes open, looking away from the party. She is just standing still. Dariax asks if she's all right. Wisdom save from Opal, 16. Opal hears him, but he sounds like he's a distance off from her, even though he's very close. She responds, "Did you say something?" Dariax, oh man, his name is a pain in my ass, apparently. He says that he's worried that she was having a distant moment again. Opal asks if anyone else heard that. Morrigan looks around, making sure no one's nearby. She looks for nameless ones, the group chasing them down. She doesn't hear anything around them, but she feels an intense sense of dread, like something massive she can't stop is coming towards her. She turns to Opal, and that feeling is coming from her. Opal then suddenly explodes in every direction. Abria pulls out a map. Opal feels herself splinter out. Webs and gems shoot out all over the place. Opal has been getting very dark. She hears her voice in her ear. I wanted us to have more time to do this organically, but your sister has been getting in the way. Opal says this will be bad for her image. The voice doesn't care. She needs a champion, and Opal needs to sever her ties to them for that to happen. She needs someone to work for her, and Opal accepted the crown, and this bill is due. Opal will become her champion. Her is the Spider Queen. Opal asks where Ted is. The Spider Queen says that she didn't kill her or get rid of her. She doesn't want to hurt Opal. The rest of the party watch as Opal floats into the air, and they see the leaves burn away around her. Opal then attacks Furai. Note the party are telepathically bond. They always cast that before they start traveling. So they all have communication within their heads. Opal puts up Hexblade's curse on Furai before she shoots her Eldritch Blast at her. 2 of the 3 Eldritch Blasts hit. Opal deals 31 damage to Furai, and the party looks up at Opal and they see that she has 4 arms. It's time to roll initiative. Initiative rules are Morrigan with a 27, Dorian with a 24, Furai with a 23, Ted with a 10, Dariax with a 9, Opal Spider with a 7, and Opal with a 4. First up is Morrigan. She can hear skittering off in the distance in the woods. She makes a perception check and sees the gems all over the ground, and they seem to be magical and they are connected to Opal in some way. Morrigan casts haste on herself, and then she moves up within 10 feet of Opal. She needs to make an acrobatics check to get up on the platform that Opal is currently elevated on, and she rolls a 26, no problem. Morrigan then uses her Vow of Enmity to give herself advantage on attack rolls against Opal. Morrigan then attacks Opal, using Divine Smite at 4th level, dealing 27 damage. However, Opal takes none of this damage. Opal's second set of arms then reaches out and grabs the blade, and then a shadow walks out from Opal. The blade is now in the shadow's leg instead of in Opal's leg. The shadow looks like Opal, but it's actually Ted, and Ted takes the 27 damage. Ted pulls out a massive sword of her own, and Morrigan attacks the shadow. She hits Ted, but Ted casts shield. Ted asks what she's doing. Why is the first thing she does is try to draw blood? Morrigan doesn't know. Ted says that she will protect her at any cost, even if she has to slaughter Morrigan. The skittering of the spiders gets louder at this moment. Morrigan then moves away from the edge of the platform. Dorian is now up. He activates his boots of flying, and it gives a bardic inspiration to Furai. He then flies up to Opal and tries to grapple her. Opal rolls a natural 20, and Dorian rolls a 17. Opal just moves him to the side, and she is not grappled. Dorian is super close to Opal and can hear her thoughts versus what her actions are actually doing. He tries to talk to her to keep Opal in the forefront, but with a persuasion check of natural 1, he tries to reach her, but Opal just says that she doesn't know. Dorian asks who she is. You're she. I'm not kidding, that's literally what was said. Opal says, am I? Furai is up. She tries to get a read on what's going on. She rolls an insight check of 23. She asks the Wild Mother to see if she can pull Opal away from what's going on and what the Wild Mother can do to help. She gets a feeling that it tells her to remove the crown. That's what Furai can do. The next feeling is a wall of wind blocking Furai from moving. That is what the Wild Mother is suggesting. Why should she stop what's going on? Furai asks the Wild Mother, or what the Wild Mother needs for her to help Opal. She gets a feeling, she gets the same feeling of why should she stop this, but it seems to be a feeling out of fear. She also then feels the crown being removed from Furai's head and a flash of pain, suggesting what needs to be done with the crown on top of Opal. Furai in Opal's head says, I'm sorry, and then out loud says, you can't have her. Furai then tries to lava whip Opal towards her, but Opal makes the save and only takes half damage. Opal tries to use her armor of hexes, but rolls a 2, so she still takes the damage, which is 7. Furai runs along the base of the platform that Opal is on, and she moves up and touches one of the gems, and she recalls a memory that she had with Opal briefly. A memory of a conversation, but she pulls herself back into reality and gets ready to dodge anything that comes toward her. The skittering gets much louder again, and a bunch of spiders enter the battlefield. The party can hear the laughter of the Spider Queen. She says, "You won't stop me without killing her. What are you willing to do?" Then one of the spiders runs up to a gem and crushes it. Opal remembers her mother tucking her in at night and telling her a story. She says a group of people long ago found a beacon and learned a god or a concept split itself apart into a bunch of pieces. These people worship the Luxon. They go through consecration. Her mother was one of these people. She understands why Ted protects her. She is a part of her. Then the memory is gone forever as the spider crushes the gem. For those of you curious, I think there's like a mild theory I can throw out here. So in the Kryn Dynasty, which is in Wildemount, the higher-ups of that society, they all worship the beacons, which is a Campaign 2 concept, and these beacons are a part of the Luxon, which is like part of the general creation story of Exandria and how this thing came into being. It grew consciousness, and then it started to like want to understand and feel things, so it split itself off and created everything, blah, blah, blah. That is the creation story that those people worship and follow. The beacons allow the Kryn Dynasty to sort of reincarnate themselves every once in a while. And before Campaign 3, there was an event where a bunch of like these reincarnated souls didn't stay within the Kryn Dynasty. They actually went across into other places. And I think the theory that is being suggested is Opal or Opal's mother is either one of the people who were sort of reincarnated, or Opal is the reincarnate, and it was like a failure, because that's what happened when these reincarnations sort of went elsewhere. It sort of caused a lot of issues, and I think the theory or the implication is Opal or Opal's mother is one of these people who like were one of the the reincarnations that weren't supposed to happen, which is actually kind of interesting. Back to the combat, the other spiders move up, and that is all they can do. Ted is up. She swings for Morrigan and hits, dealing 14 damage. A con save from Morrigan, and she saves it. Dariax is up. He casts Bless on himself, Furai, Morrigan, Dorian, and Cyrus, who is also here. Dariax climbs up the platform, but he hurts himself on the way up, taking 2 damage. Dariax then gives a Bardic Inspiration to Dorian. He took some levels of Bard. Opal is up. She casts Darkness and put herself and Ted inside the darkness, and Morrigan is also stuck inside. Only Opal can see through the darkness. She's the one that has like magical dark vision. Opal then moves back a bit. Her spider is up. The spider moves up to Furai and then takes the help action for next turn. Cyrus is up. He asks what he needs to do and is told to try to kill a spider. He then moves away from the tree he was hiding behind and takes out a bow and tries to shoot the spider with an arrow. Unfortunately, he misses. Everyone at this moment needs to make a wisdom saving throw. Literally everyone saves. They feel an insane sense of helplessness come over them, but they all shake it off. Morrigan is up again. She tries to hop over to where she last saw Opal. She rolls a rather poor acrobatics check, and she lands hard and takes 5 damage as she lands. She does, however, land where she wanted to. She then jumps over to Furai and uses Lay on Hands to heal for 31 hit points. Furai tells her to save as many of the gems as possible. She then picks up one of the gems nearby. She feels a bond between herself and Opal, and if it's destroyed, the connection will be lost forever. She then sees a memory of them floating on the Brimstone platform after the Kymel incident. The memory is of Morrigan and Opal talking about when they first met and what they first thought of each other and how far they seemingly have come and how they feel about each other now and the strength they have when they work together. Morrigan comes back from this little dream or memory, and she has protected this piece of Opal from the Spider Queen and she puts it away. The whole party saw this memory due to the telepathic bond. Morrigan yells to grab more of the gems, and Furai gets mad because that's what she just said to do. Dorian is up. He flies up out of the darkness, and he casts Dispel Magic on it. However, it fails. He tries to land next to Dariax. He makes an acrobatics check, and he rolls rather high. He lands next to Dariax, no problem. He then returns the favor and gives Dariax a Bardic Inspiration. Furai is up. She runs up and grabs some of the gems, and she sees a memory as well from this gemstone. She sees a conversation between herself and Opal after they left Kymel about how Furai is doing, learning her sister was alive and is now trying to kill her. Opal comforted her in this time. Back to the battle. Furai has the gems and saves it from the Spider Queen. Furai then runs up to the platform and ends up on top of more of these gems. Opal is forced to use a legendary action to shoot Dariax with Eldritch Blast, and all 3 hit, dealing 38 damage to him, and Opal heals 10 of that due to one of her abilities. Ted is up, she is in the darkness, she blindly swings towards Dorian and hits him, dealing 9 damage. Dariax is up. He quicken spells Dimension Door to land near a hill that's nearby. He pulls Dorian through as well. As they land, they are able to avoid crushing one of the gems that they landed above. Dariax picks it up. He sees a memory of a few days ago when Dariax went to go pee and saw Opal off in the distance muttering to herself. He crept up behind her and tried to make sure that she was okay, and if she asked if he ever feels like he doesn't exist. But this memory is corrupted and changed. When they finish their talk, Dariax tries to pull her back to the rest of the group, but she doesn't. And she says that she has to go soon. Dariax says that he'll follow. Opal says that she needs to go alone and asks if he will let her go alone. Dariax says if that's what she needs, and Opal says that you have to let me go. Take Dorian to wherever he needs to go. He needs to go with her, or away from her. Opal then yells no and lunges toward Dariax. The memory ends, and it was corrupted. Back to the battle. He puts the gems away, hopefully saving that piece of Opal. Opal says that that's not what actually happened, and the Spider Queen says to be quiet, I'm trying to make them go away. Legendary action, spiders go. They move up, one destroys another gem, and one attacks Cyrus. Cyrus is hit by it. We aren't told the damage, but we do know he is poisoned. The others move toward Dariax and Dorian, but can't attack yet. Opal feels part of herself being pulled away. Wisdom save from Opal, she fails. Ted turns and runs into her body. Everyone else makes a wisdom saving throw. Furai and Morrigan save. Dariax and Dorian fail. Dariax and Dorian see something horrible. Dariax watches Opal fall to the ground in pain, and she is turned into a Drider with multiple eyes and arms, and yeah, that's a gross-ass visual. She screams and then laughs. Dorian, on the other hand, sees everyone being corrupted. All of his friends look into a mirror, and a twisted version reaches out and pulls them through and swaps places with them. At this point, Opal gets a little taller. She stretches out and becomes 6'5" and has 2 more sets of arms. Black ichor comes from her mouth, and a 3rd set of arms come out of her, and they are all holding daggers. She now has 6 arms, I believe. Opal, Ted, and the Spider Queen are all working together now. This is where the episode ends. So there you have it, episode 92 of Campaign 3 of Critical Role. Definitely interesting. Definitely an interesting one. It doesn't live up to 91 or 90, so, we're going back down on the excitement trail, honestly. I thought it was really cool that how everything happened. I like the dynamic of Imogen and her mother, and how, Imogen is aware of how, enticing the pull is, and how, Liliana's I believe in Predathos, I don't believe in lewdness and the Weave Mind, so I'm kind of curious how that is going to sort of divulge. Initially, I was like, okay, cool, they're going to be able to get a ton of information on Liliana, but that doesn't seem to be the case. She seems to still believe in the cause she's moving towards, which is kind of interesting. And then, obviously, they got back to Exandria and learned that they were going to be going to Aeor, potentially, to sort of potentially jump lewdness, which I think might be a fucking terrible idea based on how the Odahan fight went. But if the Dominix, or Dominox, however it was pronounced, the creature that's sort of disrupting the assembly getting these devices is that much of a pain in the ass, maybe if that thing is enough to sort of cripple lewdness a bit, the party attacking him afterwards would be huge, and getting rid of lewdness would be dope. So that would be really cool. I think the Dominox, if you guys go back to the split episodes where there was 2 different teams, the Dominox to me sounds like another one of those creatures that was awoken, much like the one in Uthadern. So maybe it's sort of what happened. Another creature woke up. I don't think a Dominox is something that's been in any of the the campaign guides that they have, so who knows, or the setting guides that they have. So I'm not too sure about what a Dominax is. I really like the idea that it could be like one of those celestial beasts, like was in Uthadern. So that's a possibility. And then obviously we get the second half of the episode, which was the Crown Keepers, which I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. I like seeing Dorian. I like seeing Matt play. I like seeing Amy Carrero and Opal back. And the other two characters, Fiorai and Morrigan, are fine. Like not too familiar with Morrigan. Fiorai is literally one of my least favorite characters to ever exist. So for them to be back, I'm a little torn about how I feel about it all. And personally, I'm excited in seeing this little break in the story for the Bell's Hells, giving us a bit of space because it's been one long story going throughout the entire campaign. So it is nice to have like a little bit of a break from the overarching story. I just hope it's worth losing the episode because it's going to be this. The second half of the episode was to the Crown Keepers, and it seems the first half of the next episode is going to be dedicated to them as well. They did mention that the Bell's Hells will be back for 93, so that's very good. We know they're going to be back. Hopefully it's not for 10 minutes, and hopefully it's the second half of the episode. So realistically, I hope what they do here is worth it. I enjoyed the ideas in the combat. I like the idea of like seeing memories. However, each memory took like, I swear, 15 minutes, and it didn't need to, if that makes sense. And I think a part of that is, and it kind of leans back into what I don't like about Abria's DMing. And I want to make this clear. I don't think she's a bad DM. She's just not a DM for my taste. Abria, I liked her for the first 8 episodes of EXU. I thought she was fantastic. In Kaimal, she started becoming like way too descriptive about everything, and then she asked like the players to be super descriptive about everything they were doing, and that just eats time. And I'm not a big fan of like everything being like uber descriptive like 24/7. I'm not a big fan of that. Matt does describe things a lot, but he doesn't describe it for 15 minutes. Abria will describe an apple for 15 minutes, and it really bothers me. And I need to put that out there because that is a huge problem that I have with the second half of this episode, that a lot of things are like way too descriptive. Aside from that, I have no big issues with the rest of it. I thought the combat was good with the exception of the overly descriptive parts, and I like the idea of like the whole memories thing. The potential concept of Opal being one of these like reconstituted people is really cool, and like she being like a reincarnation, and that's where Ted comes from, or that's where like a bunch of this stuff sort of applies to her. I think is kind of interesting. So yeah, definitely interested in what's going on with Opal, and I'm definitely interested to see the rest of this combat because it didn't end. Obviously, they still have a second fight to go through. The Dark Souls boss entered phase 2, so that's what's happening for the current episode. So yeah, excited to see that. We will be on a break next week, and then after that we have the return. So I'm very excited to see exactly how this whole combat ends, and I'm excited to see how the Crown Keepers meet up with the Bell's Hells. With that all being said, I will see you guys on Tuesday for whatever video I make next. Peace.